the delusional and arbitrary nature of beauty and the parts that make it so. I was watching a Paul Newman movie called, oh, what was it called? Now I forget. The Verdict. The Verdict. And you can watch it for free on this site called the Flixer. But what it brought to mind, and this is not something that has not been brought to mind after doing 1,000 audios. You think a little bit when you do 1,000 audios. Some of them a half hour long. So what is that? Half an hour times, that's a lot. So I don't know if you get any more proficient, prolific, enabled, capable, whatever. But I'm going to guess that I'm a lot more capable than I was 1,000 videos ago. Well, plus all the other stuff, the 30 years of teaching. Got to think about what you're going to say and what you're going to do. But that is not the point of this particular recounting, observance. I was noticing, as I have noticed, that the film got into a freeze frame. The Verdict. The film, The Verdict, got into a freeze frame, which happens a lot when you watch these free videos by these free sites. They don't work perfectly, but sometimes you can actually watch a whole movie and nothing goes wrong. But this got into freeze frame, and I was looking at Paul Newman from the side, and he had the typical skull structure. He's got the hair, the hair sticks out here and there, and you got the jaw, and it's fuck. I guess it's okay. I mean, it's all we got. But I immediately saw the skull. He's a skull like anybody else is a skull after you die and rot away. And it's, I guess it's at first a little disappointing, that some of us aren't something more than a skull. Can you imagine that? What are you going to be? You going to be a barn? Maybe an octagon. But yeah, pretty much the skull is what we all are. And then you stick some stuff on it and you have some weight, or you don't have some weight, fat, so on and so forth. And then you got some hair, you don't have some hair. But bottom line is skull. And I've noticed that since, I guess watching the television series Bones. So I guess maybe whatever it is. How far does that go back? 15, 20 years? So now when I look at people after watching whatever it is, 150 episodes of Bones, now when I look at people, I see a skull. Doesn't really matter what makeup you have on, how fat or thin you are, or what the fuck you've done with your hair to, give you delusional thoughts of, yeah, well, look at this. Somebody will love this. And then I'll get some sex. I use that, you know, male, female there. Yeah, you know what I mean? But now I can't look at anybody without just thinking skull. And I'm not a Jeffrey Dahmer. I'm not going to peel your skin off. I'm not going to eat your face. But, oh, I think this is an aging thing. It's a zero testosterone thing. Once you've had a radical prostatectomy, which I have had, and I got no testosterone, I got no drive. When I think about having sex with a woman, all I think about is what kind of infection I could get, what kind of bacteria is growing down there. Don't, ooh. What a horrible thing, right? Fucking horrible. And I don't know how to deal with it. I mean, if I had kids, I surely would not like to be thinking about my son or daughter as a skull. So whatever factors and forces in life brought me to this point where I can't look at anybody without just thinking skull. That's a bad thing. And maybe they shouldn't make certain TV shows where you watch it for 150 hours or whatever, and all they show is bones. And then we have to go out in the world and live. And you look at someone, and when they start boring you, when they're talking and you start to hear because you can't process what they're saying, it just is worthless or meaningless or doesn't make sense, and then you see them as skulls. And it doesn't extend to the rest of the body. I mean, easily it could, but the talk comes out of the skull. And I wonder what life would be like if skulls could talk. just throwing that out there. Crazy idea. But I wonder how many of you have experienced this unfortunate perception. I consider it unfortunate. I'd love to not look at people and think skull. I'm picturing them with no hair and no skin, and not the Jeffrey Dahmer kind of thinking that way, just having seen skulls. So I guess this is just the way things go. Who knew? Could we ever have planned when we were young children or anticipated to grow up and imagine other people as simply skulls? I did this comedy routine about 40 minutes, and about 6 years ago, I was doing it with a friend, and it was a collaboration where he played cello and I was improvising a story. And it's pretty interesting. I mean, it takes you through driving a tractor and knocking down a fence and running over some old woman, and there's a dog. The old woman loses her head, and Then some dog is kicking around the head and then finally traps the head and then starts fucking the head. And I call it the dog is skull fucking. And it was totally improvised. I mean, he was improvising the cello, I was improvising the routine, but we went on for 40 minutes or so, and we finally got to the skull fucking thing, where the dog is skull fucking the woman who lost her head after getting run over by a tractor. So, and that's where we both lost it. He started cracking up. He couldn't continue to play the cello, and I started cracking up. Ah, what a burden. When I look at people, I remove all the hair and all the skin, and I just think about skull, which is very unfortunate because most skulls look alike, right? So, but the rest of it is just dressing, superficial dressing. And I guess that makes the point, you know. The skull with the superficial dressing is absolutely meaningless. It's what comes out of the mind and the mouth. And that's what makes life worth living.